And welcome to our Factor Artist Development Grant Training with Heydon George. Heydon is the founder of Spec Management. He helps businesses and artists develop their brand and scale their growth using key marketing and financial strategies. Heydon also sits on the board of directors for Ontario Musicians Co-operative as well as sits as their artist services chair. So we greatly appreciate Heydon. Thank you for coming and talking with us today, Heydon.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.
So I'll let you just jump right into it wherever you want to start.
Okay, so we're talking about the Factor Artist Development Grant today. So essentially, what this is it's a $2,000 subsidy for whatever artist development things you need throughout the year, right? For the next 365. I'm gonna pull up the guidelines for this program because there are quite a lot of uh, there's a lot of like semantics to how this works, and to properly understand exactly how this works, it's best just to read the guidelines. So I'm gonna start there and kind of explain the nuts and bolts on what the artist development grant is. I'm also going to talk about how to access the application for the grant and what this is going to do. We're going to start talking about what the jurors expect from you when you're trying to write this grant, and then we'll go to like a Q&A session after that where I can take questions and talk with people and answer their more direct concerns, especially if you've already done this once or twice before and you haven't got accepted, what we could change and what we could do better. So I'm just going to share my screen here and go into the guidelines. So it's just going to go here and share that screen there. So what you're seeing here is the Factor Artist Development Program guidelines for 2020 and 2021. So you can find the link to this if you just Google artist Factor Artist Development, and you just click on the first link. It'll be right there. You can just open it up as a PDF. So, like I said before, this is a $2,000 subsidy for whatever you're going to be doing throughout the year, which could be sound recording, touring, showcasing, video content production, and marketing. There is also a new rule this year. 10% of the grant can be used for capital purchases, which means you can use $200 of this grant to purchase gear. Now, normally you wouldn't be able to do this, right, with this grant, but now because of COVID, they've made a special exception where you can use 10% of the subsidy towards buying your own gear. So if you need to get like an interface, or you need to get a new microphone, or new pair of headphones, you can do that now. So I will say that it is a subsidy, right? So they're going to fund 75% of your artist development needs. So in other words, if you want access to the full $2,000, you actually have to show that you're going to spend $2,667. Shows that you're actually going to contribute a portion of that money. So going forward, the deadline for the next artist development program is November 12th at 5 p.m. This was extended. It was the end of October, but now they've moved it out to the 12th, which is, really good. They started doing that because of COVID and everyone having to adjust their kind of plans for the year. They gave a bit of an extension. So that's really good. So for the people who can apply, people who are rated general or artist level 2 can apply for this grant. Well, what this means is that if you every person who puts in their artist profile on Factor, they get a rating, right? Usually you're general right from the beginning. They do it twice a year where they reassess, where you can put in it for a reassessment and get your level raised if you meet certain requirements. But for the most part, all you have to do is just create an artist profile, and you're general rated and you're eligible for this. So I'm just going to go down here. Everyone can read this. We're going to talk about how the program works, right? So I've already explained that it's a subsidy and that you need to actually match some of the funds, which is up to 25% of it. But the eligible activities you can do with this grant: sound recording, rehearsal space, equipment rentals, studio time, party personnel. So like if you need somebody to help you with your mixing, your mastering, artwork, photography, your design work, stuff like that, you can hire somebody third party to do those things for you. Touring and showcasing, so your airfare, vehicle rental, gas, hotel rooms, registration fees, and your roadies, your marketing and advertising, those are all eligible. Um, Video content creation, third party production costs. If you have to hire a producer or a director for a music video, you need to hire a videographer for a music video, or hire a designer to do a lyric video for you, or make promotional content. You can absolutely use this money towards that. You can also, use money to hire publicists, advertising, digital marketing, so like Facebook, Instagram ads, TikTok, stuff like that. You can use that for social media, building your website, um, stuff like that. So stuff like artist residencies, songwriting retreats, band practices, woodshedding, those aren't eligible under artist development, right? Especially for the purposes of the money in this. So you can't use those use this money for those things, unfortunately. Right. And it used to be that you couldn't use this money for capital purchases, which means you couldn't use it to buy, gear or a new guitar. You couldn't do that. But now you can use 10% of it. So $200 towards buying something like that. So this program, they reimburse 75% of your eligible costs up to $2,000, which means, again, that you have to be able to show that you're going to spend $2,667 worth of eligible costs. The way this works is that when you get funded, you get half of it up front. So you get $1,000 up front. And then upon completion, they reimburse you the other half. So it's interesting. And the way this works too is that if you want a cost to be covered under that budget of that 2667, you actually have to make sure that any of those eligible purchases are done after the application date. So you can start making eligible costs from the date that you apply, but not before it. So I'm not sure who is in the chat yet. If you have any questions as I go forward, I'm kind of just breezing through the guidelines. Put your questions in the chat or speak up, and I can answer those as we go. So this next point here, which is point 23, if you've got the guidelines pulled up, is an interesting one. And I'm going to read it out word for word and kind of explain it because it's a very important point. So in addition to your third-party costs, Factor will recognize up to $500 in donated services from the artist or members of the artist band for professional services provided during the artist development year, such as recording time, traveling to and playing live shows, working on creation of marketing materials. To claim this amount, you must submit a artist donated services form along with your other expense documentation in your completion. Beyond that, Factor will not recognize any other donated services, in-house costs, or in-kind transactions for this program. What this means is that if you're recording in your house and you are doing this record yourself, right? So you're doing a self-produced record. You can only actually use up to $500 of this budget towards that. And the reason being is they created these programs so that they not only can support your artist development, but also support the economy built around musicians. So recording studios, anybody that touches the music industry, these grants are also built to help that economy, right? So if you were able just to do it all yourself and just pay yourself the entire grant, it wouldn't actually get put back into the music economy. So they're only allowing you to put $500 of your own services into this budget. Otherwise, it'll be deemed ineligible and you won't get the full amount upon completion. So the interesting thing about artist development that's different from the juried sound recording is that you don't have to use the money to make a recording. You still have to have a recording by the time you're done, but you don't have to use any of the money towards an actual recording. So you can record everything at your house, at your home studio at no cost. And as long as it's, in Factor's opinion, a professional sounding production, it must meet the same criteria as the assessment track, be an original song, a composition at the time of the application. It's got to be your own release stuff, but you don't actually have to use you don't actually have to spend money on the recording. You can use this money elsewhere. So you can use it for marketing. And like if you wanted to use the whole $2,000 to put it on like Facebook ads and just develop your fan base over the next year, that is something that you're totally able to do. You don't need to use this entire money on your sound recording. This last point here, the recipient accessibility support fund, right? This is something new that they just put in here like today. Like I haven't even read this yet. So Factor grant recipients are eligible for top-up support of their project funding for costs related to accessibility. Factor will allow applications in this fund for up to $5,000 each fiscal year, not to exceed $5,000 per project. Eligible costs claimed under this fund will be reimbursed 100%. This fund is now open to artists, its staff, and music companies associated with project artists or applicants. Support for this fund is provided exclusively by Canadian private radio broadcasters. See more details on Factor's accessibility page. So this has to do with accessibility in terms of, I imagine. Well, let's go take a look. Are there any questions yet while I'm pulling up this page?
No, I think we have a couple of viewers, and I think they're kind of just taking in the information right now because this is very important stuff, and I think they're probably just reflecting first.
Yes, it's a lot of information. And I'm going rather quickly because I want to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of what this application actually is.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this fund is for people who self-identify as having disabilities, including physical, sensory, mental, intellectual, and learning disabilities, and require additional support in the application process as a result. So this is a fund that you can access if you have these kinds of issues. So how this fund works is you would contact your project coordinator who gets assigned to you when you start your application. And you'll be asked a few questions, right, to get the proper assistance that you need, and then you'd have access to additional funds. So that if you have some kind of disability, whether it be physical, sensory, mental, intellectual, or learning disabilities, and you do require additional support, this is probably something that you'd want to look into. All you do is upon applying for Factor, reach out to your project coordinator and just ask about this assistance, which is something that they've literally just added within the last couple days. This when I was looking at these program guidelines last week, it was not there. So that is really cool and kind of unprecedented. So I'm really excited that there's a bit of extra money for people who need extra help throughout this process to be able to access, which is nice. Okay, so let's talk about how your project's assessed, right? So you need one assessment track, right? Be it a new, recently recorded original song or composition that has never been commercially released at the time of application. You may also, only with Factor's pre-approval, submit previously self-released version of your own song or composition, but only if you intend to re-record, remix, or remaster that song. If you're in jazz or a classical genre, a new arrangement of a work previously recorded and released by another artist may be allowed with Factor's pre-approval. So how you would do this if you needed to get that pre-approval is you'd contact your project coordinator who's assigned to you upon starting your application, and that's the person that you would talk to get that pre-approval. So you upload that song in an MP3 format along with lyrics, if applicable, and you meet all the requirements for Canadian content. So if you're making music in Canada and it's a Canadian, I think it has to be 51% Canadian artists, like members in your band. So if you have 4 members in your band, 3 of them have to be Canadian. And if as long as it's written in Canada and it's a Canadian song, it fits the requirements. It can't be in French or have primarily French lyrics. And the reason for this is not because they're exclusionary of French people, is because there's a separate program for French, primarily French music. It's by the same people. It's by Factor, but it's by their French arm, which is based out of Quebec. So you have to include a current artist bio and an artist development plan. So it used to be that you would have to like format your own thing and it would look like really ugly. A lot of the times somebody would come to you with this grant and it would just look god awful. But now it's all in their own dashboard. So you have to fill this all in their own artist dashboard, which we'll get into. So you need an artist development plan, which is in 2,000 characters, detail where you are in your career and provide an overall strategy and plan for growth in the coming year. Describe your challenges, your ambitions, and where you hope to be after your artist development year. What this is saying is they want you to provide the juror some context onto where you are and kind of how you got there in very short terms. Just you got to be really short about how you got here. But providing context is key. And they want you to figure out where you're going to go for this year. Like you got to set your goals essentially in this part. And you got to be realistic about those goals. You can't be super grandiose about how we're going to tour in 18 cities and we're going to develop fan bases in these 7 different regions. You doing that, like that's not realistic if you're starting out. Like if you're applying for artist development and those are your goals, you probably should be applying for JSR. Like if that's what you see as achievable goals. So you got to make sure that your goals are realistic to where you are in your career and provide that kind of context on where you are. The next part is you got to estimate how much you'll spend on development activities. So recording, marketing, touring, showcasing, video production in the coming year. Include all spends regardless of whether you hope to subsidize them or not. So the thing is, if you plan to spend 10 grand this year, show that you're going to spend 10 grand. If you show that you're just going to spend the $2,000 or the 2667, they know that you're just there for the money. If you show that, hey, I plan to spend 10 grand across the next 365 and this is how I plan to spend it, like you're going to get a lot more brownie points in the long run when the jurors are actually looking through your application, because they show that, hey, this person is actually serious. They actually know what they want and how they're going to do it, and they don't plan to do it all on just this factor money. That's a big thing when doing this. The next step is in 3,000 characters, so in 3,000 letters. Describe how the development activities will contribute to your overall strategy and plan, and how they'll help you achieve your artist development goals. So you essentially have to justify all the things you said in the first paragraph in detail. So if you said that, hey, we're going to triple our fan base this year, and we're going to have so much interaction on our social media because it's COVID, we can't tour. You got to explain how you're going to do that, right? So I'm going to do that by running a fan finder Facebook ad campaign in these specific regions, so I can develop fan bases in these 3 specific regions, so that when we can we can tour again, we're going to have better turnouts when we go to those towns, right? So that's kind of like where you would explain those things is in that paragraph.
So we just have a couple of questions, Heydon, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So one of the first questions we got was, so if I post a 30-second clip of the song ahead of time on social media, does that count as commercial release? No, right?
No, that is not a commercial release. So what they mean by commercial release is if it's on Spotify or it's on YouTube as a full song.
Or DMDS as well, right?
Or DMDS,
Yeah.
that is definitely a commercial release. But if you've put your music out to a distributor like CD Baby or something similar to that, right, then it's commercially released. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you just posted a clip like a teaser, that's not a commercial release.
That's a good clarification as well, though, because I'm sure that there's a couple of other people as well who would just want to make that distinction to make sure.
And if you're not sure if that social media post is going to be considered a commercial release, take it down. Just take the post down, and it's nowhere. You're fine.
Mm-hmm. Because I know that's a big thing is people are posting some of their original content on like TikTok and stuff now. So that's a
If
good
it's released on TikTok, it's a gray area. It's a really great gray area. I would take it off TikTok if you're applying for the fact grant.
So when in doubt, take it down is what we say.
Yeah.
The next question we have is how much is a good minimum to put down as what your spending will be for the 365?
The minimum has to be 2667 because that is the requirement to get the full $2,000.
But what would your recommendation be?
I'd recommend spending what you need to. I know that's not a great answer.
No, I mean,
but if you feel like what I would recommend is figure out what your goals are, right? Figure out what your goals are for the year. So if you know that you want to triple your fan base in these, like let's just say I want to triple my fan base in Barrie, Toronto, and Guelph. Those are the three areas I want to focus on, right? How much is it realistically going to cost me to make a fan base in each area via Instagram ads, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, and then also getting that song out to those areas, right? So let's say that's like a very, very generous goal there is probably $3,000 is a great, like that's above and beyond what you actually need to spend on marketing to develop in three areas. You're not going to triple it. You're going to, 10x your size if you do that, right? But it just depends on what your goals are, right? So if my goals are I want to record 4 songs that are incredibly highly produced, that's probably going to cost you somewhere around 3-4 grand to make those songs from start to finish. So from cutting those songs, spending the recording time, getting it mixed, getting it mastered, getting it released, right? So there's costs in actually getting it released, getting the artwork done, getting the graphic design done, getting the liner notes, making all the lyrics in the liner notes, getting them printed physically, or if you're not doing physical, distribution costs online, which are a lot less. You got to factor that in there. So like by the time you're all said and done, you're like 3-4 grand for an EP, and then take a couple grand for marketing that EP throughout the year and marketing performances that you do and building up your fan base online. You're probably another like 2-3 grand. So let's say between 5 and 10 grand for a year to develop your stuff is a good kind of cushion.
mm-hmm.
And like the thing is, if you say I'm going to spend 5 and 10 grand for the year in your factor grant, and you only spend this 2667 because you figured out that that's all you needed to spend, that's okay. That's completely okay. It's just be realistic with your goals and be realistic about how much those goals are going to cost to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And like TikTok ads, you'd mentioned TikTok. They're probably like
Super cheap.
I expect them to be super expensive right now because of how hot
They
it
are
is.
super
Well, then
cheap.
they're so worth it. Definitely invest in those.
Yeah, TikTok is super cheap. It's really, really, really underpriced attention. Same with LinkedIn is super underpriced attention. And everyone's like, well, why would a band need to market their music on LinkedIn? Well, the thing is, people who love business also love music. Why wouldn't you be there? They listen to music.
Yeah, and musicians are businesses.
Yeah.
Moving on to the final question we have for right now. What are the biggest differences between the artist development plan and the contribution strategy? I'm having trouble not repeating myself between these two. What should we include in the contribution strategy
So
that we wouldn't include in the development plan or vice versa?
So think of the first paragraph that you're going to be doing, the 2000 character paragraph, as an overview of everything. So you're going to put the key goals. This is where you're going to align your goals, right? So when I said figure out what your goals are, that's where you're going to put your goals. So if your goals are, I'm going to build a fan base in Barrie, I'm going to build a fan base in Toronto, and I'm going to build a fan base in London, like in London, let's say, right? Then that's where you'd put those goals. And then you say, I also want to have an average streaming, I want to have an average viewership on my streams of 50 people, right? In 6 months. That's where you'd put that goal, right? If pre-COVID, right? I want to play 35 shows this year. That's where you'd put that, right? Contrary to that, with all this COVID stuff going on, I want to do 200 live streams, right? That's where you put that goal. And then in the second paragraph, in the 3,000 character paragraph, that's where you get specific about how you're going to achieve those goals, right? So I want to build my fan base. I want to triple my fan base in Barrie. So I'm going to run a fan finder campaign ad in specifically targeting people in Barrie, right? Or specifically targeting people in Toronto or London. I'm going to do 200 live streams this year. So this is going to be my live streaming schedule. It's going to do this at this time, this at I'm going to go Monday at 5 o'clock. I'm going to do Saturdays at noon, and I'm going to do Fridays at 7 p.m. because my data tells me that this is when people are most active, right? And that's where you'd put like that kind of nitty gritty stuff, right? Those more finer details in the second one about how you're going to achieve the goals you set out in the first paragraph. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I got a bit of feedback in the chat saying that it really helped and that they really appreciate you answering those questions. So let's trudge on so we can get to the meat and potatoes.
Okay. So now I want to say, like, as much as important as your plan and all that stuff is, I hate to break it to you, it only counts for 25% of your score. How wild is that? All that work you got to put in to tell them exactly what you're going to do to develop your artistry as work, and 75% of the score matters upon the song you put in, right? So something that you can do when you're filling out this grant is you can choose which genre you are. Only pick one genre. And I don't care if you're a blend of four. Pick one genre and pick the genre that's the most dominant in your music, because what that is it's going to put those jurors, those type of jurors, in front of your music. So if you're a rock artist that has blues influence, but also is kind of psychedelic, right? Don't put all three. Just put rock. Because if you get into the blues category and someone's expecting a blues musician and a rock musician with slight blues tones comes in, they're going to just give you a 0 because that's not what they're there for. Right. So let's go through each kind of area as to what they're actually looking for. So songs, right? So your writing, your arrangement, and your composition. So what they're looking for here is like how well put together your song is. In terms of like arrangement, where is it cohesive, right? Does it feel weird, or does it feel good, right? The next part is your vocals and your lyrics. So this alone is 25%. So make sure on your assessment track that your vocals are clean, they're clear, and they're audible, right? Arguably, vocals are probably one of the most important part of your song. Now, if you are in an instrumental band where you're only doing instrumentals, they actually don't take this into account at all, right? This area of marking is actually just deleted for you, and they weigh songs and musicality heavier. That's it. So you want to make sure that your style and they actually mark your range, right? So if they're not going to give you detriment if you don't have a wide range. Like if you can't hit a bunch of super high crazy notes and a super bunch of crazy low notes, that doesn't matter. They want to make sure that you're singing comfortably in your range. So you're not stretching for super high notes that you can't hit, or you're not trying to sing too low in your register where it sounds muddy. They want to know that it's dynamic, right? So they want to know that it's you can sing quiet or you can sing loud in the appropriate spaces. So like if you put in a nice acoustic song, right, but you're just screaming over it, it's probably not going to net you very many marks because it's not appropriate for what you're trying to do, right? But if you're putting in like a crazy fast and hard punk song and you're whispering, that's going to be very weird too. They don't like you got to make sure that it's appropriate for the song and the emotional impact of the song. Like, does the song make you feel something? That's a big thing. If they're listening to the song and it doesn't make them feel anything, right? You're gonna lose some marks for that. If you can make them cry, you're gonna get a full 25. Like if you can really get to their heartstrings with a song, you're going to get a really good mark here, especially with if your lyrics are formatted very well, right? If you and there's a proper format for how to format lyrics. If you're wondering how to do that, just email. You know what? Talk to Madeline. She'll get you the appropriate email for the people who can actually show you how to properly format lyrics. Um, that's a big thing. Or I can follow up and put it into the uh, into the emails where if you get into your email. Musicality is the next part of this. So your performance, skill, technique, interpretation. So interpretation, that's mainly only for like jazz songs that are redoing a song that's already been released, right? So interpretation doesn't really get taken into account if it's an original song. But your performance, your skill, and your technique do matter, right? So if it's a super sloppy performance because it's a really scratchy demo that you made, and it's not exactly like it sounds really dull, really crappy, and really sloppy. They can hear all the like scratching sounds when you're going up and down your strings on your guitar, stuff like that. They'll lose you marks. If it's super clean and super nice, right, you're gonna get high marks in this point. And then the last part is your artist development plan, biography, and additional materials that you submit. So you can submit, like if you have videos of yourself, right, like professional shot videos. If you have good photos, good press pieces. If you have any press, this is where you'd submit that as well.
Like an EPK?
Like an EPK, yeah, you would put your EPK here. So your artist development plan, biography, and EPK, and website, if you have one, are all good things to put that extra um to get that extra boost in that area. But like I said, your songs are the most important part. So just putting in a scratchy demo that you made on your phone is probably going to do you not very good. Like you want to put your best foot forward. So if you have something that's already in the works and it's good, I would submit that. I wouldn't submit your scratchy demo because that's not going to get you anywhere close to actually being accepted into getting the funding.
Now, for the last 25%, what about social media? Would you recommend including any of your social media on there to show how active you are
Um,
in that?
social proof is good. I would show your best social proof. I wouldn't just put your random social media accounts on there, right? So like just
No,
putting your
definitely your pro accounts. Yeah.
well, no, I mean like if you just like put a link to your Instagram, right? Like essentially what you're doing is you're providing an opportunity for the juror just to get lost or distracted, right? So the best thing to do it would be like find your best post, your best performing post, right? And just post snippets of your social proof, so showing that people are really digging what you're doing, right? You can take like it's essentially a testimonial, right? You could take stuff like that and put it in there. Like even having some of that in your EPK is not bad. Um, but don't be putting like links to all your different social media platforms because that just gives more touch points for the juror to get lost and to get distracted, right? And gives more opportunity for them to judge you upon whatever they see versus judging you on your merit and how good your plan is, right? So putting some social proof isn't bad, but I wouldn't link all your social media platforms on there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So quickly, I'm just going to go over what are eligible costs, right, and what's not eligible, and then we're going to go over and start looking at how to actually get to the application. So, artist donated services up to $500 for all members and all activities. You can claim using the artist donated services form. How to get to that form is just open this guideline page that I told you how to get to at the beginning of this, and just click artist donated services form. It'll take you right there. Sound recording, pre-production, and rehearsal space rental costs for up to $500. They must be paid to third parties. Studio time, uh, production personnel, equipment rentals, and hired musicians are all eligible. Purchases up to 10% of the offer, which is up to $200 for musical instruments, gear, and home recording equipment, are now eligible. That is a new thing. So that wasn't there before. This is the first time that you've been able to do that. Touring, showcases, travel costs, hired musicians, and crew fees, conference registration fees. Those are all eligible. Lucky for everyone else is that conferences are a lot cheaper this year just because they're all online. So take advantage of that. Um, Marketing, publicity, ad buys, photography, graphic design is all eligible. I'm going to put an asterisk on ad buys because all your ads have to target only places in Canada. Any ads that target anything outside of Canada can be deemed ineligible, and then you're straight up out of pocket for that. So you can include American or international ad buys in your budget for when you're doing this, right? But you have to specify that that's what that is and that it's not part of the factor funding. You won't be using factor money for that, right? So you can only target things within Canada with the factor funded money. Video production, so producers and directors fees, which must be paid to a third party. So it means you can't like pay yourself as your own director of a video. Crew personnel, location and equipment rentals. So you can rent you can rent cameras and lighting, and you can rent locations to do your shoots and stuff like that, which I recommend doing. Right? Don't just go to a place and assume you can shoot there, because you can get into a lot of trouble. You can get trespassing fines. You can do all kinds of stuff, and if you get a criminal offense like criminal trespassing, on anywhere that you're doing it, you can't cross the border anymore. So you shot yourself in the foot. So make sure that you're doing all your video shoots properly, right? That's something that's very big. So the costs below are ineligible for this program. So any per diems, meals, or hospitality costs are out of your pocket. You can't claim that against the factor money, right? And apart from the $500 for the artist donated services, you can't claim your own time or services above that amount. Any manufacturing costs, including physical music formats and merchandise. So you can't use this money to print merch, and you can't use this money to make physical CDs. Strangely enough, you can use it to distribute it online, though. So think about that. Plus, you're not really going to be seeing anybody. I don't think printing physical CDs is really feasible with COVID. So you can take advantage of that. Artist residencies, creative and songwriting retreats, and cost of living expenses like rent and utilities are not eligible costs for this program. Voice and instrument lessons are not eligible as well. And taxes that are subject to rebate to the recipient, such as like HST, so like your tax return, right? If you have to pay money at the end of the year for your taxes, that's not eligible. Musician union dues, so like your OMCI, membership is not eligible. Penalties, fines, and pension contributions to union mandated payments are also not covered under this. So you can't go to the musicians union and pay your dues with this money. Costs in this program that are being covered for any factor funded projects. So if you have, let's say you got artist development, but you also have something like their sponsorship program, right? You or their marketing program. If you're funded somehow other way, like let's say you want to do some marketing with this grant, but you already have their marketing grant, you can't cross pollinate, you can't double dip. So that's a big thing there. If you're non-Canadian, you're not eligible for the program, right? And like I said, if you're in a band, at least 51% of the members have to be Canadian. And all these costs must be verifiable with invoices, receipts, or proof of payment. So like, don't try to pay for anything with cash. That is a bad idea, right? E-transfers are fine because there's a paper trail, right? Getting receipts if you're going to pay with cash, or sending them an invoice, right? And say paid with cash. if you insist on using cash, that's how you would do that. Make sure that you have proof of payment for every single eligible cost, because they're gonna want that. You have to prove that at the end upon completion. You have to show that this is how you spent your money and this is why. And like they actually touch upon cash payments here. So like incidental when you're doing touring and showcasing expenses, incidental purchases under $100 are eligible when supported by a cash register receipt. So you have to have that receipt. Personnel fees for services are eligible with a signed receipt from the services form. So they have a form that you get the person providing the services to, and you get them to sign that, and that's your receipt, right? And essentially all this just says is just get receipts. Make sure you have receipts for everything. Now, travel costs are actually covered under this grant. So accommodations are eligible for a maximum of $300 per room per night. Flight costs at economy rate only, so you can get your flight costs covered. And that's basically the biggest thing there. So with musician fees, if you have to hire a musician for sound recording work, musician fees are capped at a rate of $400 per studio session to a maximum of one session per track. The day rate includes overtime pay for the session. So if you have to hire a guitar player to play on your song, right, you can pay them a maximum of $400 for that song using this grant. Leader fees are eligible for third party only, and up to double the day rate, but only if the session is contracted pursuant to a musician's union contract. So essentially, you can get somebody who is like a manager, and you're able to pay them as long as they're part of the musicians union. For live performances, musicians fees will be capped at $300 per show, and the show rate includes all paid performances in one calendar day. So if you have to hire, let's just use a guitar player again, you got to hire a guitar player for a show, you can use this funding to pay for $300 per show for one day. So if you do 5 shows in one day, they're only eligible for that 300. Yeah, so let's move on to the project dashboard and Factor itself. And we're going to go through a couple things in there and then get down to the actual application. So when you log into Factor, you have to sign up using your email. You're going to come to the homepage, which looks like this, right? So you're going to sign in. I don't know why it signed me out, but here we are. You're going to sign in here. And it's going to bring you to this page. So when you first sign up, you have to create a user profile, right? That is just whoever you signed up as. You guys got to put your personal information in here. This is going to verify that you're a real person, right? So your passwords, your names, where you live, and it's also going to get to put your passport or your birth certificate here to prove that you're actually a Canadian citizen. What your gender is, you're Indigenous, your person of color, you have disabilities, to identify as LGBTQ2. You're going to put all this stuff here because you may be eligible for more funding if you do, or preferential funding if you identify as some of those things. I do not, so I don't put that on there. The next thing you got to do is you got to make an applicant profile. So what an applicant profile is the person who's responsible for the money. That is what this profile is. So if you're in a band, whoever is responsible for the financials has to make this profile. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make one just to show you how this is done. So you put in for your applicant type. I'm an individual sole proprietor. You could do a partnership, right? So, or a corporation. Most people are an individual sole proprietor. You will know if you're a partnership or a corporation because you'll have the paperwork documenting that. You'll have your business registered that way.
Would a band qualify as a partnership if all the band members are the owners of their business?
If you have that on paper, so if you've registered your business as a partnership, then yes, you would do that. If you have a partnership agreement, then you do that. So if you guys haven't registered for your business, but you want to make sure that this is an even 25, 25, 25, 25, split, right, for the band, you would draw up what they call a partnership agreement. You can Google it. There are forms you can fill out. And all you have to do is all you have to say is this person owns this much of this business, which is your band. And then you'd put partnership. It'll ask you to list your partners when you do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So you search for your email. I'm going to put in my email here. It might not let me do this because I already have an applicant profile, but we'll see. Yep, it fills out everything for me. So you put in your email there. If usually when you make your user profile, if you do all that right, you can actually, it'll just autofill all this stuff for you when you put your email in there. It gets you to fill out the same. It gets you to fill out the same information that you would do in your user profile. If you're under 18, you have to have a parental consent form so that your guardian consents to you doing this grant application. You can right in this little area, you can actually see there's a clickable link here for a parent or legal guardian consent form that they can fill out, which is nice and handy. When this first came out and you needed this, it was really a big pain in the butt to try to find a consent form because they didn't have one, but they've made one. Do you receive to wish get notifications when things are changed or submitted? So this is how you're going to know when things are getting done. So do you you want to know, you almost always want this to be yes. You put your social insurance number in here. I'm not going to do that because I'm streaming. If you have a business number, this is where you're going to say yes, right? And you're going to put it in here. If you don't, say no. It's not a big deal. Are you an MEC company? If you don't know what that is, you are not. It's part of a different. It's part of the Canadian Music Fund, and it's a big thing. And if you're not part of it, just say no. And chances are you're probably not. You put in your.
Hey, Heydon, sorry to interrupt you. We actually can't see your current page. We can only see the page it's on before, and sometimes we get that little pop-up that you're clicking on. So just to let you know.
Okay, hold on. New share. Applicant profiles. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. Share.
There we go. Now we're on it. Yeah. I was like,
sorry,
I
guys.
see these things popping up and you're talking like, am I missing something?
Sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to the top of the screen here. So back to what I was explaining. It's just your personal information here, right? So do you identify as these things? There's that parental consent form I was talking about. You can see right here that this is where you actually get the form if you're under 18. Your social insurance number. This is the MEC thing I was talking about. If you don't know what that is, you're not part of it. If you do know what it is, click yes, because that's important for Factor. They want to know if you're part of that. You put in the rest of your information, put your website, what your applicant's primary business activity is. So like if you're a manager, right, applying for an artist, this is where you'd put that, right? If you're a music publisher or a record label or a songwriter applying for an artist, that's where you'd also put that. And here's where you're going to put the applicant's other music business activities. So like if you're the person in charge of the financials in the band, but you're also the artist, you're also the manager of your band, then you put that down, right? Or if you're a songwriter, you'd put that down here. If you're a professional grant writer, right, like you're doing a grant for an artist, you'd put that down here. If you're a radio broadcaster, recording studio, whatever you happen to be, this is where you put all that stuff. And you just hit save. And you're good to go. So I'm just going to share my screen one more time, and we're going to go to the next part here. We're going to go to artist profiles. So let's share my screen one more time. Share screen, artist profiles. There we go. So you're going to see here that this is where artist profiles are. So similarly to applicant profiles, you have to have an artist profile. And what this does is, this is the band. So where the applicant process is, the profile is the person who's in charge of the money, who's going to have the bank account that the money goes into. The artist profile is the actual act itself, right? If you're a solo artist, it'll be the same as your applicant profile. So you're just gonna have to fill it out, right? As if you're the same thing. Now, if you're an artist with an artist name and your legal name is different, right? Your applicant profile will be your legal name, and your artist profile will be your stage name. That's an important distinction. So you're gonna put your artist name. We're just gonna call ourselves artists today. Do you want to provide additional information for this profile? Hit no. All right.
All right, Hayden,
Because
it's doing the same thing it did before. I can only see the previous page.
that's weird. Thank you for letting me know, because I can't see it. Is that better?
Oh, because
Sorry, you're breaking up. What's that? Hello. Okay.
oh, sorry.
No worries. Is it better?
Yeah, it's all good. I thought I was unmuted when I said it the first time.
Okay. So this is where you're gonna put your name. We're gonna use artist today. You're gonna choose no on this one. You provide additional information. So what this is um, only mandatory information Factor requires to assign your artist profile a general artist rating will be available once this page has been saved. So essentially what this is if you have if you're eligible to be an artist 2 or artist 3, so you have the financial statements and all the like the record sales and the streams and all that proof to show that you are an artist 2 or an artist 3 rating, then that's where you'd put that information. 95% of people aren't an artist 2 or artist 3. They usually fall in general. So, and the people usually applying for artist development don't fall into those 2 categories. So you're just put no here, right? Unless you have like 100,000 streams on something, then maybe you'd be putting that information in and you hit yes. But here's where you hit no. If you are at that level, email OMCI and they will help you go through the process of getting rated as an artist 2, because that is quite a process. Here's going to be your artist rating. It's kind of blank right now because we haven't actually put in the application. So when we're done making an artist profile, it's going to submit you to be to get rated. It's going to take a couple of days, right? This is why we don't do this the night before. And once you're rated, it'll show here that your artist rating is general or artist 2 or artist 3, depending on where you are in your career. It's also going to show your project coordinator here once you've been rated. So once you've hit saved and you hit rated, it's going to show you your project coordinator, their name and their email here. This is going to be a page that you can refer to quite often. You're going to be spending some time on this page. You're going to put your website here. You set your home base here. So like I'm based out of Barrie, so I'm just going to choose Barrie here. And my home base is Ontario. And then you put your primary genre here. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is super, super important. I'm going to put pop here just for whatever, right? Do not click anything that's below it at all. I don't care if you identify as all of these things. Just click your primary genre and leave it at that. Because what's going to happen is if you choose pop, but you also choose rock and you also choose reggae because you're magic, then what's going to happen is they're going to put you in front of a pop jury. They're going to put you in front of a rock jury, and they're going to put you in front of a reggae jury. And that pop jury is going to think very, very different things about music than that reggae jury. So you want to choose only one, the one that applies the most to your band or your artist. And the next thing is where this is where you're going to upload your artist bio. Usually there's a paperclip you can click to attach something. For me today, it doesn't seem to be there, which is kind of sad. Sadness. And then your artist administrator, who is down here. You just fill that in. It'll be Oh, you must save this page before uploading. That's why. So you hit save, and then it'll allow you to upload it. Cool. Save was successful. You go down here, and you should be able to upload your. Oh, it's not there for some reason. That's okay.
It's just decided it's going to take a break today.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, they're not gonna let you. I know you want to talk about it, but that sucks. Okay, so important. This isn't the only page for your artist profile. If you go to the top corner, there's actually like a drop down menu, and this is where you can put your artist members. Right. So they're going to have to you're gonna have to put your artist members here. If you're just a solo artist, you just put yourself. When entering a band, like when putting a band member in, you have to enter their email address, right? Press the search icon, and if that band member already has created a login with Factor, it's going to automatically fill in the information. If that band member has not created a login, then the online system will automatically create them one. That individual will receive an email advising them that their artist profile has been submitted, as well as instructions how to complete their user login. So what's going to have to happen here, and this is extremely important to coordinate with your band members, is for them to sign up to Factor and put their identification to prove that they're a Canadian driver's license or a birth certificate. You got to make sure that they get those information in, because they will not allow you to get rated as a general artist until you can prove that over 51% of your band members are Canadian. So you got to make sure that they go through the process and they put their identification in their user profile so that they can prove that they are Canadian. That is extremely important. You don't want to miss that step, because that will automatically get your application rejected. So make sure you do that. Now, before I move on, I want to make sure that there's no questions. Anybody have any questions about artist profiles or application profiles?
I believe so. It was back when we were discussing what should be submitted. One of the questions was, should your EPK be put in, or sorry, submitted separately from your website? Because I know a lot of people have their EPKs on their website. So instead of just including the website itself, would you include both the website and the EPK?
Yes. Just
Awesome.
include both. Some people don't click through to the website. Some people do. Almost every time, if there's an EPK, they'll look at it. So, and worst case scenario, they open up your website and they go, "Oh, this is just the EPK," and they click off it. It's not a big deal.
Awesome. Well, that's sorry.
Include both. No worries. Include both.
That's the only question we have about those currently, so we can continue on.
Okay, perfect. So, says here too as well. Discography isn't very important, right? Especially if you don't have one. If you don't have one, ignore it. But you can put your discography in here, right? This helps you with your getting your artist 2 or artist 3 ratings, right? This is where you're going to put all that information in. Honestly, if you're not ready for artist 2, I wouldn't be putting anything here. It's not a big, it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to go onto your application. No one's going to see it. This is strictly for rating purposes. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this. And I'm going to open up a new page here, which is called projects. So this here is the project dashboard. Can everybody see that?
Yes, for now.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure that I change the sharing once I get there.
Okay.
So this is the project dashboard. So this is going to be where you start your application. So once you've finished your user profile, because you just signed up, then you completed your applicant profile. So that's the person who's going to be handling the money. And then you created the artist profiles, and you've gotten all the members of your band to confirm their Canadian citizenship, and everything is hunky-dory, and you've been rated as a general artist. Woo, good for you. You did it. Now we're going to create a new project. So what you're going to do is, this is going to be, your project is going to be your application. Okay. So to create a new project, you hit create new project. It's going to do a pop-up. I know you guys can't see it immediately. So once it's done loading, I'll share that with you. New share, create new project, share. Okay.
Yay, we see it.
So what you're going to do here is you're going to select an applicant profile and then an artist profile. So I'm just going to do this for now. Sure. Yep. Sounds good. So what's weird here is you're going to see that this band here, Atlantis Drive, which is an old punk band that I used to play in, there's no eligible programs. And the reason for this is because they haven't been rated. That is extremely, extremely important, is make sure you go through all those steps we did before to make sure you get rated so that you can actually be eligible for a program. Because a friend of mine, Josh, his band, The Mystics, I've done a grant for them before. And you notice that they're actually eligible for artist development, juried sound recording, marketing productions for non-factor sound recordings, and live performance. Today we're going to do artist development, and that project name is whatever your record's going to be. So if it's a song, you're going to put the song name here. If it's a record, you're going to put a record here name. I'm just going to write test for now. And you hit save. You make sure it saves. Which could take a while. And once you're done, then you hit close. So I'm going to wait for this to save so I can actually get into it. Close. So when I go into it, I'm going to share this screen here. So you're back to the project dashboard here. And all you got to do is go into the project number. It'll open up a new window. This thing opens tons of windows, and it's a really big pain in the butt for me to do here. Share new. You can see here, this is where you're going to see how much they actually offered you if you get accepted. It tells you your project coordinator. So Paige Gussett is my project coordinator. That's the person you're going to talk to if you have issues or if you have questions about the application process. That person can be able to help you out.
And like Heydon said earlier, that's the person you'd go back to if you needed the accessibility grant, correct?
Yeah, if you need to apply for that accessibility grant, that's the person that you would contact in order to get access to those things. So to add a new component, add component. This will create a component application. Components application. If you're approved, you'll also see the components completion in the table below. You can add an to open an existing component. You just hover your mouse over the column, you click through to it, and to successfully submit an application or completion to factor, you come back to this page after you've filled out a component, complete, validate, submit button, and then it'll check for potential errors and then allow you to submit your component for review. This you'll receive a submission confirmation within 24 hours. So this validate submit button, that's how you finish your artist development grant. Add component, right, is how you get to that 2,000 word 2,000 character paragraph, and then they also the $3,000 one. The 3,000 character one, and then the cash flow. This is also where you could add your EPK and your website, all that other stuff like that. So now I'm gonna open it up to questions at this point, because we can talk about your bios and your stuff like that as well. Your bios, what you put in the first paragraph, your second paragraph, and go from there. Because I've showed you pretty much everything you can do on the Factor website, and because that's extremely important that you get that right in order to get the application in the first place. Because you can spend hours trying to figure out what's wrong just because something's wrong in one of your profiles. So this is how you get to this point. All right, so I'm gonna get back out of here, and we can open it up to questions. So now I can actually view the chat, which is really nice.
So because most of the questions were answered while we were going along, I'll just give them a minute to, come up with anything they might have while they're reflecting. So you and I
Mhm.
can just talk for a minute because I do have a question for you.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
I think I've written one grant, not for artist development, but I wrote a grant and I had no idea how to do it. It was my first grant. So I
Yeah.
do have some, and I know that for those who are going into this, if this is their first grant, they might be like, so how do you approach this? So the one thing I do have for you is, what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're grant writing?
Not being realistic in what they're doing. So, especially for this specific grant, because this is different from probably the grant that you wrote, which is probably a government grant, which has a very specific way you do those. There's like a language you have to speak almost.
I did an open grant, so there was no set amount of funding for a media corporation. So I just kind of
Mhm.
went in and you had to like write it. There was no form you had to fill out. So I was like,
Yeah, it's a
am I doing
proposal
like a
essentially.
report or an essay? I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a totally different beast. So this one's a lot more formatted, which is nice.
Hmm.
And it never used to be. It used to be really free form. They're usually just like, tell us what you want to do, and we may give you money, maybe. um, now it's very formatted and very specific to help artists and make sure that everyone gets the funding that they need. Where you start is setting realistic goals. I've been saying it a few times in this,
Yeah.
and because that's what the most important thing is. Make sure that whatever you intend to do this year is achievable for you, right? So if you know that you don't have a very super driven like work ethic, right, and you don't be reaching for the stars with your goals. Make sure that your goals are realistic to what you can achieve, and make sure that you speak in a comfortable language, right? So you want to make sure that you're not using slang terms and you're using your punctuation correctly. Like that's a big thing, right? Make sure that it's like spell checked is a big deal. Uh, but like I said before, make sure that your goals are realistic, and then you know how you're going to achieve those goals. So set out your goals, and then figure out how you're going to achieve those goals. So the best thing to do is like get out a piece of paper, right, and write like if you have 5 goals, get out 5 pieces of paper, write a goal on each set of piece of paper, and then write down bullet points of how you're going to achieve those goals, right? And then what you have is that you're going to have a small paragraph for each. You're going to be able to write a small paragraph for each goal, right? So your first paragraph is just going to be talking about those 5 goals, and then the second paragraph that you have to make, the 3,001, is going to be 5 paragraphs where you go into detail about those each one of those goals, right? And that second paragraph is going to be your bullet points, while your first one that you did is just going to be a summary of all 5 goals. And that's the best way to do it, right? They just want to see that you have a viable plan that's going to be good for you and it's going to help you grow, because that's their biggest concern, right? Um, and like I said, it's not so much the writing that is important in this grant. It's your song that is what's weighed the heaviest. So you got to make sure that your assessment track is good enough to be put out there, right? It
Out there.
Well, I mean by out there, I don't mean
I
out
know.
there in the ether. I mean out there in terms of if would you be willing to share that with the public, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're sharing it with the public, which is the jurors. So if you wouldn't be comfortable sending that assessment track to everybody on your friends list and everybody on your socials, right, you shouldn't send it to a juror,
Yeah.
right? You got to make sure that you're comfortable with the public seeing it, because that's what's going to be happening, right? So make sure that it's good enough for at least that. Doesn't have to be perfect, just at least it's good enough to be shareable.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest thing. So how are there any questions? Other
Yeah,
questions?
actually, I think great minds think alike because I stole someone's question. So I took the words right out of their mouth there.
I can't see the chat. It's blank for me.
Oh, it's on Facebook and YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
just within the Zoom call here, so
No,
I could.
that's okay. Sorry, I should have posted them in there so you could get a better understanding as well. I didn't even think about that.
It's all
Um,
good. I'm gonna see if I can open it and get to the video here and actually see the chat.
You might not need to open YouTube. YouTube's usually a little slow. People like to converse with each other on Facebook. That's where it's
Yeah,
happening.
that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the on OMCI live thing. So I
Another
don't think.
question we have is how much does having team members count for? Will I have a better chance if I have a specific producer's name, etc.?
Okay, so when you're putting out how you're going to achieve your goals, this is where you're going to put your team, right? So if you have a team, say your team. That is the biggest thing, right? So if you have, it doesn't, you don't need a team to get the funding, right? But it certainly helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're working with a specific producer, make sure that you say who that producer is, right? Because not only does it say that you have support and that people believe in what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
it also shows that, hey, this is probably where some of the funding is going to go. You say that, hey, some of the funding is going to go to this producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
This producer is part of my team. This is why I picked them. This is how, and this is why I'm working with that person. Um, and same with the rest of your team. If you have
Yeah.
somebody that's doing your social media, put them in there, right? That's super important right now because of COVID. If you have if all these team members who are doing these jobs are your bandmates, make sure that you show that your bandmates are doing something, right? So if your guitar player is your social media guy and your drummer is your I don't know, like a different role, then you'd say that, and you'd make sure that you outline every single team member, no matter, and make sure that you say what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
As part of that second paragraph, the second paragraph that you have to make,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it shows that you have a support network, and that's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, Especially in business and in music, right? You can't do everything yourself. Is the quickest way to burn out and the quickest way for a project to die, right? So you want to make sure that not one that you have a team because having a team is really good, and two, show that you have that team on paper when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing your applications, because a lot of times your team is how you achieve those goals, right? So when you're outlining how you're going to achieve the goals, that's the best place to put your team, and it really does help. When you do have a team, so make sure that if you don't have a team, maybe start thinking about how I'm going to build that team, and that could be one of your goals. Totally. If one of your goals for this year, your artist development goals, is build your team, make that your goal. And
Yeah, but
do that.
make sure your goals are smart. Haha.
Yeah.
Smart goals are important.
Yeah. You just make, you're not going to reach out to the biggest producer in the USA because that's your artist development goal. No, make sure that they're realistic. But
Yeah.
if you don't have a team and one of your goals for this year is build a team, make that one of your goals, and they'll see that and go, wow, this person actually knows that they that's the next step, and that's really good for you. So make
Yeah.
sure that you do that.
And I know that working with certain people, like you mentioned, a producer, certain producers will only work with you based upon your work ethic.
Yep.
If you have really good work ethic. So, producers or other people who have that reputation in the industry, if you're working with them, that speaks really highly of you as an artist.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it shows that it's again, it's social proof, right? So when I was talking about social proof earlier, that's also what that is, right? If you're working with a producer who has made a name for themselves, or if it's like a publicist, or it's somebody on your team has made a name themselves in their field, right? You are banking off their reputation. They're putting their reputation on the line for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what that says to the juror is that this person is worth
Mm-hmm.
investing in, right? So you're more likely to get a better mark because you are working with people who have built a name for themselves, right? Not saying that you have to. I'm not saying that you have to go out and reach out to all these people who are expensive to work with, and just so you can get a name to get funding. Like that's not what I'm saying to do. Right. You can work with somebody who's totally green, and that might be the best move you ever make because they're hungry and they want to
Mm-hmm.
get stuff done. And that's like at the end of the day, getting stuff done is the most important thing. All right. But just showing that you have a team or that you're willing to work towards building one, right? It's a really good thing to put in your plan because it's so sensible, and it's the only way you're going to succeed is with a good team.
And you got to play well with others, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some things we should always talk about in the plan? Like always talk about.
Well, it's like I said at the beginning, there's no clear cut way to do this. There's no perfect way to do this, right? So there's no one thing that if you talk about this, you're gonna do amazing, right? So what I suggest, rather than thinking about what's the one thing I should put in here, is really ground yourself in what's realistic. Right? Coming back to that point, I sound like a broken record, but what you got to do is make sure that what you're setting out for yourself, if you're going to set out 5 goals, right, for the year, that though you're going to be able to achieve those goals, and you're going to be able to tell people in a succinct enough way that I'm going to be able to achieve those goals doing X, X, and X, right? So the more specific you can be about how you're going to achieve your goals, the better, right? Without rambling, right? Something I can tell you, rather than what you should say, I can tell you what you shouldn't say, right? That your music is unique and eclectic, because everyone says that.
My music is unique. I heard that's a very standout word.
Yeah, no, you never say that. So like there's certain things that you should never say, and that's one of them, right? And saying how you're going to be the next best thing, right?
I'm gonna get my music out there.
Getting your music out there. I just need to get my music out there. My goal for this year is to get my music out there. Never say it. Never do it. Right? If your goal is to get your music out there, my goal is to get to my music into the ears of 2,000 people in the Barrie, Toronto, and Guelph area.
Within the so much year.
That's a very specific goal. That's got metrics, that's got numbers, right? People
Time
can
frame.
fathom it, right? People can't fathom what out there means. So getting specific about your goals is very good, right? Being super vague about things, right, just shows that you don't know what you want or how to get there.
Right? Now talking about what goes in the grant, is talking about your awards and achievements too braggy, or should you definitely go there?
So you should go there. You should talk about your achievements and what you've done, right? But more so than just talking about your achievements, like just don't randomly drop them out of nowhere. So like if your goal is one step above the achievement that you did, say I achieved this, right, by doing this stuff, right? So I achieved this by doing this stuff, but I want to achieve that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stuff that I did to achieve this goal, right? And I'm going to add X, X, and X to make it even better, right? So use your brag as part of one of your next goals, right? Make it so that it's in there, right? Rather than just being like, I got this award.
Yeah, so maybe because I know you said you're from Barrie, I'm from Barrie. One of the big arts awards of the year is the Barrie Arts Award. So if you get like the Youth Arts Awards, maybe your next step would be you're trying to get an International Singer-Songwriter Association award potentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is how I'm going to get there, right? I got to the Barrie Arts Awards by doing this, this, and this. And I want to get that international songwriters award by doing this, this, and this, right? I've got to step A. I want to get to step B. What am I going to do in between there, right? Use your brag as a stepping stone rather than just a brag, and that goes a long way.
Awesome.
In any case, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If it's on a resume for a job, right? Instead of just using it as a brag, use it as I got there by doing this, and I want to get here.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of a job, it's how I'm going to get there is by getting this job, right? This job's going to get me there. In terms of getting that next award, right? This funding is going to help me produce this next record, which is going to be able to put me in contention for that award, right? So, and I'm going to use that money to do X, Y, and Z, right? So I can get that award. So that is one of the goals, a way to frame how you're going to do your goals, right? If you're trying to think about how am I going to achieve that, think about what you've already achieved and how you did that and how you can do that better to achieve the next part, right? So using your brags in that way is a really good way to do that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for all of your advice, Heydon. We don't have any more questions. Is there any other final notes you have for us this evening?
So the big thing is if you have any more questions on anything specific, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'm in the Ontario Musicians Slack. I'm also on Facebook. You can shoot me a message and ask me a question about your factor grant if you have anything specific. This will be up on, I believe, YouTube. So if you need to really watch it for any of the finer details of how to sign up and everything like that, you can go ahead and rewatch this, and that's great. I really appreciate everybody who has listened, right, to me ramble about various um, things to do in a browser, which can be boring, or reading through guidelines, which can be boring, but it is important, and I appreciate
It's so
everybody who
important.
went through it. I really do appreciate it, and thank you to Madeline and to OMCI for having me here. Really, I really have fun when I do stuff like this, and I love teaching people. So like I said before, if you have questions beyond this, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm not going to rip your head off. I'm not going to charge you for any advice. That's not what I'm about. I'm about teaching people. So, reach out to me. I will help you. If you just need me to review it, I'll review your grant. I'm okay with that. Right. You can find me via Slack or via Facebook.
But
And
he is a busy man, so grab him ahead of time.
yeah, don't do it the day before. I will not look at your grant the day before. Right. Send it in good time, and I will take a look at it and give you my opinion, and I'll mark it up with my red markers and whatnot. And the last piece of advice for grants. Okay, write your grant, give it to somebody else that you trust. Let them read through it. Right. Let them read it aloud. Let them mark it up. Take what they marked up, give it to a third person, get them to mark it up, give it back to you, and make adjustments. Right. The biggest downfall for a lot of artists is their own perspective of themselves. Give it to somebody who has an objective perspective on who you are as an artist, and it'll do you a lot of good. Because guess what? The people who are on the juries don't know you. So it's important to make sure that you are not just, living yourself too much and give it to other people to proofread and to make sure it feels and sounds good. Right? That's every grant that I've ever had be successful has had 3 other people touch it and review it. So make sure that you get other people to look at it and make sure it seems okay. And yeah, that's all I have for you today.
Awesome. And I do have a quick PSA.
Sure.
You'd mentioned earlier that I can put people in touch with someone who knows how to properly format lyrics. And I actually don't know who to put people in touch with to format lyrics. So I don't know if I'm the best person to reach out to for that. But if you are an OMCI member, you have
Tori knows how for sure.
awesome. So
For
Slack
sure.
Tori then if you're an OMCI member.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been a wonderful dinner, as because you said meat and potatoes earlier. That was a bad joke. I'm sorry. I want to say quickly, thank you to Julian who's producing tonight, and thank you for coming and talking to us. We love having you. We so appreciate having you as a member because you have so much going on. And speaking of what you've got going on, for those non-OMCI members or those OMCI members who aren't as familiar with you, maybe this is their first year as a member, where can they find you online? Maybe if you have any projects going on, like Spec Management has Instagram.
Spec Management does have Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm going to be starting. Well, it's already started, but more content are going to start coming out there soon. Actually, the best place to find me is on YouTube. Go just search Spec Management. You can
And
find
you've got your podcast going.
Yeah, I'm actually starting up a new live stream that's going to be going on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. And I'm going to be talking about success, essentially how, and you know what? We talked about goals today and how to properly achieve them. I'm going to be talking with people about their goals and how we can realistically go about achieving those goals, whether it be you want to start a business or you've already started a business, you want to grow it, or you're an artist and you want to figure out what the next steps are and in your career, or maybe you just want to move up in your career and you don't know how to do that. So we talk about those things, and we're gonna realistically go through those goals, or maybe you just want to move up in your career, achieve those. So that's called Monday Minutes of Success, right? It's at 7 p.m. and it'll be on YouTube live stream, and then the replay will be posted on YouTube probably a day later.
Awesome. And I know for anyone who's a fan of gaming, he's also got the League of Average Gamers going on.
Yes, we have a Discord community called the League of Average Gamers, and essentially it's a place where content creators and gamers can go and be themselves, network, have fun, find people to play with, and other things like that. So if you're into that, just shoot me a message and I can give you the link to the Discord, and hopefully we can game sometime.
Well, thank you so much, Heydon. I know you're probably gonna get like a follower spike here, even if it's just the 3 people who watch, because you're such a cool dude and you got so much going on. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for everyone who came and watched. It's been such a cool evening, and I'm glad that I got to learn about Factor, because I know how important it is to all the artists who are applying. So thank you, and sorry. You look like you had something you were going to say there.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you and have a wonderful evening, everyone. This is OMCI and Madeline, the co-education coordinator, signing off.
Bye.